Maximus Greenwald, and I'm on a quest to figure out how to tell my story as one of the co-founders of Warmly. We scaled our first $5 million in revenue by scaling our sales function. To scale our next $5 million, we're gonna need to scale a whole marketing function. I stumbled across the book Founder Brand by Dave Gerhardt.
And that's when it hit me. The most powerful part of a marketing function is the ability to tell a story, and there's no story more central than the founder story. I decided it was finally time to invest in building my founder brand so I can tell the story of Warmly. This is all new to me, so I reached out to the one person I know can coach me better than anyone else, Dave Gerhardt.
All right, everybody, I'm so excited to be doing this. This is my personal deep dive into growing and building my founder brand. And Dave Gerhardt has done a huge favor for me, the founder and author of Founder Brand, to basically mentor and coach me along the way, trying to figure out what is Max's founder brand. Dave, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, Max, thanks for doing this. Just a question, why do you want to do this? I think there's a lot of people that believe in founder brand, but I think you could probably flip a coin and find a bunch of other people who don't think this is a worthwhile strategy or think that it could be a risk to the company. You know, kind of like anything in marketing, you can make the pros and the cons for it, but it seems like it's something that's hit with you. And so I'm curious to hear why you want to bet on this channel.
Yeah, well, before we raised our Series A, we launched our whole sales function, and that was a whole journey of my own learning being a first-time founder. And then once we raised our A, we started our marketing function. And marketing was really confusing and new and strange to me, and we had to figure out different channels. And it's funny because Warmly's company is basically building AI marketing agents, and I realized that one really valuable channel could be my own voice and narrative. But I've kind of always seen building this business as more than just a business. It's actually my own personal exploration of myself to figure out who I am as a person. And so maybe selfishly wanting to build my founder brand and exploring for myself, who am I and who is Warmly, my company, is kind of figuring out who I am too.
Cool. Okay. I can get behind that. I dig it.
I guess in a way, Dave, you get to be my therapist as well as my coach around founder brand.
That's great. Everybody needs one.
There you go. So yeah, I think like why we're doing this podcast is we're a mid sort of Series A company hoping to raise our Series B in about a year. And we want to unlock a channel of founder brand and brand in general for our business. And I hope that when people understand me and my story, they can by extension understand Warmly's story and why we matter and why we want to help reshape marketing through our AI marketing agents. In doing so, I came across Founder Brand, which is an awesome book. Thank you for writing it. And in reading it, a lot of stuff came up for me around how do I create this founder brand? And I want to actually follow your blueprint. And so over the next 6 to 8 months, I'm going to be once a month taking action on each chapter in your book. And I'm going to be coming back to you each month and saying, Dave, this is what I worked on in the past month. Here's how I've evolved my founder brand. I'd love to get your advice and feedback on how I'm doing and how you change up what I'm trying. And hopefully at the end of it, I will leave a more branded founder.
All right, let's do it. I think it's a bold mission. I also think that if you are somebody who believes in this, obviously you're building a company in the AI space, but I do think that this is more important than ever. I think that one of the biggest differentiators that you can build on as a company today is going to be the founder brand and the personality of the company. And so if I were to kind of just close my eyes and, throw a dart somewhere hoping to land in the right ballpark, this would be a bet that I would make. And so if you've already checked the box of like, I want to do this, I want to make the investment. And that's usually the biggest objection that I hear from people is like, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources. Clearly you're making this investment. And so I think you're already on the right path and hopefully we can help you out. Let's see.
Isn't that like the first step to recovery is admitting there's a problem? Is that sort of the same genre here?
I don't know. I've never been in recovery, but it seems possibly. It's not even like you have a problem. I just think you're looking for key ingredients to build your marketing around. And you already have about 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. You've already been posting there for a long time. We got connected because I saw you post something. You posted a cease and desist letter, and that got my attention. And so I think you already have the right ingredients. And so I think this is going to be promising.
Well, thanks, Dave. And for those who haven't followed me before, Warmly and myself build in public. So we post our sales numbers and talk all about what's going on inside of our business for about 18 months now. And really, it's sort of the early innings, I guess, of building a founder brand toward kind of discovering who we are through just posting what the heck's going on. And I think people hopefully have enjoyed following that so far. And I'm glad I got to come across you in this way. Kind of the magic of LinkedIn in a way is getting to meet cool people and kicking things off. All right, here we go. Let's dive in. I recently read the first chapter of Founder Brand, which is about becoming a storyteller. And actually, to admit to you, Dave, this kind of made my heart sink. I actually don't think I'm a great storyteller yet. I'm hoping to become one. But this is a real thing that hits home hard because my entire family are like near professional storytellers, except for me. So I have a mom, a dad, a sister, and a brother. And my mom is a New York Times bestselling author on matchmaking and love. And so her stories have been read millions of times over and have helped tens of thousands of people get married. So she's a great storyteller. My dad is a career marketer and venture capitalist where his storytelling has convinced hundreds of limited partners to invest alongside his companies, so quite a good storyteller. My sister works in education in Alaska and literally teaches a course called Storytelling, and she helps Alaskan Native youth share tribal stories of their elders, so great storyteller. And then finally, my brother was the youngest kid to ever be on the TV show Shark Tank, and his story was so compelling and adorable, he got a deal on the air. So family of storytellers, and then there's me, just a guy trying to build a company. So thanks a lot for making the first chapter something I'm, a little bit insecure about.
I think you're just projecting. I'd actually flip that on you and say you have everything that you need to become a great storyteller. And so that's amazing. Have you ever written about that, by the way? Have you written about your family on LinkedIn?
No. Is that something you think that could be good at or a way for me to tell my story?
Yeah, literally. If just your mom alone was a New York Times bestselling author on love, that would be like an insane story. And then your dad is a venture capitalist. Your sister is in Alaska helping the youth. What the hell, man? Let's go. What are you doing with me on this call? Get back to LinkedIn and start writing.
I love it. Okay, cool. So it sounds like a part of telling my own story is like really not just the background of how I got into the company, but maybe like even my background of myself and my family.
The secret to LinkedIn, and I think any social media channel in general, is that it's very easy. I think you could approach this and say, I'm going to build the founder brand for Warmly. And I think you can post on LinkedIn every day. We can talk more about that later. But basically, I think the wrong thing to do would actually be post about Warmly all the time. I think we don't give people enough credit. And it's like, you happen to be Max and you happen to be the founder and CEO of a company called Warmly. The number one goal is to be interesting, entertaining, funny, educational, relevant, whatever. And then people are gonna be like, who is this guy? Oh, interesting. He happens to work at this company that happens to serve a need that I have. My biggest pet peeve with B2B social media is that we treat it like a B2B marketing channel as opposed to like, look, this is the greatest marketing channel ever invented. And the way to be successful on it is to actually very rarely talk about and promote your stuff. And so I think you have a great approach where like when you do talk about Warmly, you're sharing metrics. You're not just kind of touting new product features. You're talking about metrics. You're talking about interesting things you're doing. But I'm already kind of circling around this like, all right, Max is like an interesting dude. I think there's going to be, there's some stuff here. What I think is unique about social media is you don't have to be someone you're not. And so I think a part of this also is like finding the voice that feels authentic to you. You don't have to take the Adam Robinson path and every post is, stirring up shit with somebody in the industry. You need to do what feels authentic to you. And I think there's a lot of ingredients that you have as a baseline to build off of. And then we also forget that like, who's your ICP at Warmly? Is it RevOps, Demand Gen?
Yep, RevOps and Demand Gen, exactly.
We forget that like those people that work in those roles are also just people. We send each other funny memes and interesting content online. We want to be entertained. We want to find people to follow that are interesting. And so those are people, you can basically win them over by being an interesting person who happens to have a product that they can buy in their day job. That's how I would think about it.
I like it. One of the things specifically is I've worked on my own posting style and finding my authentic voice, of which I think I'm still really looking at and doing, is I find that when I post something that's very authentic to me, more of my story, nothing to do with Warmly, I can get a lot of engagement, but not necessarily see that convert into like leads bottom of funnel. And then when I post like very specific sort of tactical content related to what RevOps and Demand Gen do, still not totally related to what Warmly is, but just more about like, here's what's going on in the industry. That does tend to lead to more inbound demo requests, at least that day. And so maybe help me understand in your mind, how does the founder's brand and the company's brand come together when it relates to how I tell my stories?
an important part of this. And I think that how you think about the success and how you measure this is a very important thing. And so, yeah, if you post something funny or something interesting or that doesn't have to do with Warmly, like absolutely the goal of that post is not to like then go check your analytics and see if you got more inbound demand that day. You need to almost pretend like you're creating on social media without the purpose of driving leads for your business. And this is what drives me nuts is like, I'll give you an example. We work with sponsors at Exit 5 and we do some LinkedIn posts as part of these sponsorship packages. We do events, webinars, podcast ads, newsletters, and then there'll be like a LinkedIn post or something, right? The best performing LinkedIn post is like the worst performing ones are usually like a demand gen team gives us a UTM link and they want us to put that in the post and they want to see if they drove X number of direct conversions to that post, right? That's the worst version of it because just LinkedIn doesn't like links. A lot of people are not going to see that and click on it. The best version of it is when you basically do something like zero click content, which Amanda Natividad from SparkToro has talked about, and it's created its own kind of thing. But basically, you just want to be interesting. And as my friend Pranav, who runs Paramark, he's like, people are not dumb. We need to stop treating our audience like they're morons. If you do something interesting and is relevant to him, they will know that that was Max from Warmly. And at some point later, they will go to Warmly's website. And in the many steps of multi-touch attribution, right? Maybe there's self-reported attribution. And over time, do more people start showing up in your pipeline and the source is like Max on LinkedIn? I would never look at one particular post and judge the ROI of this. To me, this is like committing to meditation or committing to working out, whatever the thing is. Like, seems like you want to do this for the long haul. I would tell you to not even think about the results in the short term. Like, I'm just going to do it and I'm going to show up 4 or 5 times a week and I'm going to post something and it's going to be about me or my company. And we're going to over time start to look at that because the benefits show up in lots of different ways. Max is not necessarily just like, did we drive 17 more people to our website? What if that Series B that you want to raise comes inbound from, an investor DMs you on LinkedIn, right? Because they've seen you for 6 months posting and then they DM you. Now all of a sudden, wait a second, I kind of got this series, the inbound from this Series B from this tier 1 VC I really want to raise from came in from LinkedIn. What if that drove no traffic to the website, but that's the result, right? Or candidates, people that you want to attract and hire to work with you are going to see this stuff. It's also a huge tool from employment brand. And so you just got to start doing it. And over time, you will be able to better shape the ROI of this thing. Then my last thing, and I'll shut up, is the way that this works though, is also, it's like, Gary Vee, who I love, his thing was like jab, 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 right hook, or it's like give, 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 ask. And so all of those posts that aren't about Warmly actually work to like fill up this bucket, and this bucket just keeps building up. And what you get from that bucket is you get more followers, ideally, more followers, more engagement. Your audience, overall audience grows bigger. So then when you have something to talk about from Warmly, now more people go to that, right? And so for example, from my account, I have a lot of followers now. I have 180,000 followers on LinkedIn, right? I can post about a webinar that we're doing and I can drive literally 1,000 people to sign up for our webinar just from my one LinkedIn post. But if I only posted every day about a webinar that we're doing, it wouldn't work. But if I post interesting thing, funny thing, relevant thing, story, stat, whatever, and then like 9 out of 10 on that 9th post, then I have an ask, which is like, hey, go join our newsletter. I see big results from that. And I think that's a place you want to get to.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like a common mistake that founders make when they're trying to tell their story is to try to also get the immediate ROI from that storytelling, by looking at metrics right away. What
it's just not how marketing works. Like part of just because you can measure everything in marketing doesn't mean you should. And it's not how marketing works. Say, how do you buy, right? The last thing that you bought at Warmly, whether it's payroll or HR or whatever, did you buy it because you directly converted off of someone's social media post? No, these things all work as like drops in a bucket that over time fills up and then you can cash in later. And I also think like when I see people try to explain this strategy inside of the company, we immediately go into post every day, here's how much it's going to cost. And then the CEO and the CFO and whoever are like, well, how much time are we spending here and why? We're like, this needs to start with like, hold on. We believe that the market is really crowded. We want to do marketing. We want to be interesting and relevant to our audience. And our audience is on LinkedIn. And so therefore we want to make a bet in 2025 and into 2026 that LinkedIn is going to be a big channel. So we're making a big bet with Max's LinkedIn and we're going to post organic content there. You have to be able to articulate it as part of the broader marketing strategy. Otherwise, I just would tell you to just run ads then. Don't post organically at all. Just run direct response ads. And then yes, you're going to measure those differently.
I love it. And really what sort of sticks out to me is like storytelling and sort of founder content is exempt from the classic marketing attribution funnel and is a pure play around brand which is a intentional conversation with your team to say, this will pay off in the long run. Let's give it a ride, but we're not going to try to metricize it or cut it off too early. We're going to have to let it kind of evolve and feel natural.
For the record, I'm not saying don't measure this. I just think that the measurement's going to come over time. Like right now, I've been writing on LinkedIn for 7-8 years, and 70% of the people that join Exit 5 in self-reported attribution, they tell us that they joined because they've been following me on LinkedIn. Doesn't mean they clicked on a post that day, but they may have listened to a podcast or seen us at an event and then decided to join, and that's what drives that. And the other big thing that you're going to see is it's not just about the sales ROI, it is about the feedback loop at the same time. And so I talk about this in the book, but you're building a company, you're in the early stages of things, right? LinkedIn is an amazing way to get little signals and test ideas. And so you might write a post that might be related to something new that you're building at Warmly, right? And you notice that you're not talking about it specifically, but you're talking about some feature that your product does, and you're talking about how, this is a really interesting play that I think a lot of companies should be doing. And you notice like, hey man, the comments on that post were like really, really good. Like it was like ICP-ish looking people in the comments. We clearly struck a nerve on that. Another huge way I think about the ROI is, that's an amazing signal. Now let's go and either it validates that idea or we go create more content like that. Like I can't tell you how many things that I've done in marketing in the past that basically it started as a LinkedIn post. And a LinkedIn post about here's my perspective on some industry trend, and that post blows up. That's a signal for me that like, ooh, that should be a podcast episode, or maybe that's a newsletter. This is a huge part of the marketing feedback loop. For our big event last year called Drive at Exit 5, we sourced all the speakers we literally went to our podcast and we ranked the episodes by most download and most popular. And we emailed the top 10 podcast episodes and we said, hey, you were one of the most popular episodes of our podcast last year. Do you want to speak at our event? And they all did. And you can do the same thing on LinkedIn. And so it's not just about the sales ROI, it's about getting this feedback loop and kind of these little smoke tests for things that you're doing.
I mean, one of the things you talk about in the book is that there's no 6-minute abs in this framework, which is a commitment to storytelling and a commitment to telling and creating a founder brand is something that requires commitment, consistency, iteration, feedback loop, and it's something that you have to convince your marketing team is worth doing. But in your case, you actually convinced David Cancel to do this at Drift, which I think is a unique flip of it. But then you need to commit to harnessing the power of social media and using that to get that iterative sort of loop going. And that I think is really exciting to me, because as somebody who was an engineer from Google before I started this company, I love like iteration, A/B testing, little kind of iterative improvements. That is actually one of the exciting pieces of creating my story and starting a founder brand.
Well, so you mentioned the Drift thing. What was actually amazing about that job is I didn't have to convince him at all. It was his idea. I got to basically enable it, and we ran together to help that. And so I didn't have to deal with a lot of those typical questions about justifying the ROI of this, because he was the one that believed in the channel. And he's like, we will know the results from this. And if you're an engineer and if you're analytical, there are little signals that you can look. I just would say that at the same time as your team's probably going to have a spreadsheet and you're going to track impressions and likes and comments and all that stuff, you're just going to get a DM on a Sunday morning one day from an ICP looking customer and be like, Max, loved your post on LinkedIn. And it's like, those things count just as much too. And I send screenshots to my team all the time. When we write a post, maybe the post doesn't even get a ton of engagement, but I notice that it's a lot of ICP looking engagement. That counts for something. And that's a big part of this. Also, this is not unique to LinkedIn. So this thing about committing to the time here. Pick any creator in your personal life. Let's just use YouTube. It's popular, right? At some point, they were making YouTube videos that were shitty. And what I love to do is I love to go to a creator and I love to go to their YouTube page and then click videos, and you can sort by oldest, right? Scroll all the way down and you'll see even Mr. Beast, whoever, right? At some point was making kind of shitty videos with their iPhone, no editing, bad editing, and at some point it clicked, right? That is what we're trying to get to with you on LinkedIn. And I often talk about with my LinkedIn, for example, there was a time where I used to just treat it like Twitter or whatever channel. I'd be like, here's my lunch, had this meeting today, funny thought I had in the car, picking up my kids at school, right? And I realized it didn't work to actually grow my audience. And so just like YouTube or any channel, you need to find like that overlap of what can you talk about? And then what's it valuable for you to be known for? And let's write about that topic. And so for me on LinkedIn, everybody knows me on LinkedIn as B2B marketing, right? In my real life, I'm a man of much more substance than that, Max. But on LinkedIn...
Are you sure you don't eat, breathe, sleep B2B marketing? You don't go to sleep just with a big B2B marketing sign above your head?
Well, it pays the bills. So that matters that does matter for a lot. But my point is like, you have to pick those kind of one or two core topics. And I think we talk about this in the book. And you can basically be yourself and be funny within that framework. framework. And so if you look at the way I do LinkedIn or the way I inject my humor into my writing or in my comments, I'd like to be particularly silly. That's how I tend to do it, but you inject the personality there. So you got to commit to doing this thing. Any popular creator on YouTube wasn't like, I'm going to make 10 videos, and if they don't work after 10 videos, then I'm done. They're like, no. Right. I'm making a video every single day because this is my craft and I'm going to commit to making this work. And it sounds like from all your thing, you're believing this, and I'm using this as an opportunity to push you to just commit to it. I think you have all the right ingredients also. Like there are some industries where I wouldn't recommend this as a strategy. 99% of the time you can say your customers are probably on LinkedIn, but man, especially if you are venture-backed, sales tech, AI, like your core audience is on LinkedIn. So this is absolutely where I would be betting.
Nice. In the same way that people get personal fitness trainers, not because they don't go to the gym, but because they need someone to hold them accountable, I'm asking you to hold me accountable toward going on this journey. And that's what I think is really exciting. So for that, let's dive in. In chapter 1, you list 6 questions to help founders get to the core of what the key topics are they want to be known for. And I've written sort of draft answers to some of those questions, and I'd love to go question by question, give you 1 or 2 of my current drafts of the answers. And obviously, by the end of this month, I'm hoping to kind of come up with something that's core to me. But yeah, let's get into it.
Perfect. All right. First question. Yeah. There's 6 key questions. So what's the founder's backstory? What's the problem your business exists to solve? Who's the villain your customers are facing? What's the solution that you offer? What are the benefits of using your product? And what's life like before and after using your product? So first question is, what's the founder's backstory?
Before I actually told you the bit about my family being great storytellers, I was thinking more about how do I relate what I have gone through and the problem I've faced to build this company. And so what I wrote down was I tried to get sales for the first iteration of this company, and it was really hard and inefficient. And so I wanted to bring my engineering mindset to go to market and basically then apply AI automation to sales and marketing. And that's sort of how we got into the story.
Okay, I like it. There's something more in your background though. You said you were an engineer in a past life.
That's right.
Say more.
Well, I think in the beginning, I just loved code and I loved solving problems and I loved the specifics of, being able to put something together and see an output. When I really didn't know anything about sales and marketing people. I freaking love sales and marketing people now. And I think of myself more as a sort of sales CEO than as a product or technical one now. But I was surprised at a lot of the inefficiency and manual work that sales and marketing folks were doing to accomplish their very difficult task, which was to build pipeline and close deals. And so I tried it myself, right? It was really freaking hard to be a salesperson. That's what led to wanting to build a product to solve my own problem.
So have there been multiple iterations of Warmly? Like if I'm on LinkedIn, you started the company in 2019.
Yeah, we actually pivoted 5 times in 3 years through a series of failures before we landed on the idea that we're working on now.
And is there a nugget of an initial story of like when you decided to go start Warmly, even if V1 is different, is there a story that you can connect between like you saw an opportunity in the market and because you were an engineer, you found like you were uniquely qualified to go and do this? What I'm saying is like I get the story now, which is great. Like former engineer helping my company grow. I think that I can help Warmly, but I'm trying to see if there's a path we can connect to like actually starting Warmly. And by the way, let's be honest, revisionist history is okay here, right? Like
yeah,
this is marketing 101. When I was at Drift or whatever, you can basically riff on the story of why they named the company the way they named it. We kind of came up with that idea like a couple years in, right? Or Privy or Exit 5. Like I made up a story to come up with the name Exit 5. So is there some like revisionist history we can kind of work back and tell the Warmly story?
Yeah, the hard truth or the real truth before we revise it is like, I was running away from Google. It was a big company. I wasn't learning. I wasn't growing. And I said, wouldn't it be cool to start my own thing? And then I took the leap. Now, no, you should run towards something instead of away from something. But the revisionist version would be something like our first iteration of Warmly, we had mentors. We were in Techstars, one of the accelerator programs. And they said, you need to get sales by demo day. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to raise funding and your company's going to die. And so I said, okay, great. I've never gotten a sale before in my life. Let me try to figure out how to do that. And I found it so complicated and manual to try to go get a sale that I said, I wish I had warm leads. And I was like, wait, my company's called Warm Leads. There's something here. And we kind of went off to the races building.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think there's an angle there about the engineer stumbles into, the war room with sales. And you're like, wait a second, this is crazy. This is how you sell? This is crazy. Who does cold calls? Like, yeah, I think there's something there. So I like that. Okay.
Great. Let's go to question 2.
All right. What's the problem your business exists to solve? So we've kind of hit on this, but maybe let's reframe it for 2025. How do you explain the problem that Warmly exists to solve?
Yep. So what I wrote down for this one was, we exist to help go-to-market teams build pipeline in the age of AI.
I would push that a little bit more and let's go deeper on that. What is it about the age of AI that has changed the game? I think so you're onto something in that great marketing and storytelling. Steve Jobs obviously was great at this. I learned so much about this from David at Drift. If there's a mega trend happening in the world, you want to try to relate your story to that bigger story. And so you're doing that by saying because of AI, but let's dig into that a little bit more. If you were to unpack that a little bit, how can we get more specific? In the age of AI, like what does that mean? Why are things different? What's going to change because of that?
To dig a little deeper, it's that the sort of demand gen problem of finding the best warm leads gets more difficult because of all the spam outreach and all of the kind of flooding of the various marketing channels that are happening right now. And so we want to help find signal in the noise and basically surface the warmest leads to demand gen teams so they can chase the right things.
Nice. I like that. The playbook used to be like cutting edge to like get a list from Zoom Info and nobody had a list. Now it's like it's table stakes to have the list, right? You need a list of 500 companies in your ICP, you can get them. The problem is you're going to get back a list of, 20 titles in each job and you just have no idea who's actually real or not. There's a play on like the fact that you do this and it's warm that plays into the warmly thing.
Thanks for that. That's great. Can we go to number 3?
Yeah. Who's the villain your customers are facing?
Okay, I have 3, and I'm curious your thoughts. First, I put down as ABM, because we are thinking about person-based marketing, giving you the actual people that are the warm leads. My second villain is bad TAM analysis, which is basically pulling the wrong lists to go after. And then the third villain I put down was inefficiency of humans.
I think those are 3 good ones. The most gangster marketing play would be able to say something like ABM is dead. If there's a claim you can make like that, I think people want a simple, memorable message. And so there might be sub benefits that you can talk about. And we also do this, and we also do this. Find one of those things and make it really clear. At Drift, the villain was forms, lead forms. Why are we using lead forms? These are ridiculous. If you're going at ABM, I would really take a chance, especially as a Series A. You're in the David and Goliath game here. You want to go on offense. And I think making a bolder claim is the path. Number 4, what's the solution that you offer?
We offer AI marketing agents that warm up your TAM, or we offer lists of warm leads and automated ways to engage them.
Initially, I like the first one better because I feel like what we talked about earlier, like offering lists is a commodity, or at least the perception of it. Maybe your lists are better, and is there a way you can turn there? But I feel like, at least in my mind, there's a bunch of places I can get a list from. Is that really what you're selling? Are you selling the list, or are you selling the warm list?
Yes. Nice.
I like the warm up your TAM thing because there's another step there, which is like, yeah, it's easy to get a list of 500 accounts, but are they actually warm? Number 5 is, what are the benefits of using your product?
We find warm leads, which convert higher than cold leads. We use automation and AI to do the boring and hard work for you. We help marketers get promoted because we help them build a ton of pipeline. And lastly, we align your sales and marketing team on a unified pipeline building strategy.
Those are good. Those are good, Max.
All right, thanks.
Number 6, what's life like before and after using your product?
Okay, this is my favorite. I'm going to give you sales first and then we'll do marketing. But before, sales is mad at marketing for delivering stale cold leads. It's manual and inefficient to send our human sales reps after these cold leads. After, sales is only working the hottest leads using their human touch. I'll pause.
Those are great. Yes, absolutely. Dream scenario that you want to pitch is like, take this pill and you basically show up to work and you only follow up with warm leads. Yes.
That pill sounds great, but I'd consult my doctor before taking it.
Yes, warmly is in fact 6-minute abs for pipeline generation.
Okay, I'm taking that line. It's my podcast, so you can't have that. That's
hey, this all good, man. This is free. All this is free consulting.
Thanks.
Take it.
And then finally, to kind of wrap up the 6 questions on the marketing side, the before is marketing isn't sure who to target and where to target them. And after, marketing knows who to target and where to target them.
Those are good. You got a head start, man. This is really good.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like some of the product pieces are there, but where I can do a lot more work is around my founder backstory, and the villain piece, I think, as well, should be something that I spent a little bit of time on this month.
Yeah. And then I just think like something I'm seeing with a lot of companies right now, no matter how good the claims are, we're dealing with more skepticism than ever, I think, from a buyer standpoint. And so the companies that win right now are going to be the ones that have better proof. It's great to say these things, but I'm pushing the product team, what do we need to show people this? How can we prove it? Even if it's a case case study that's anonymous or data? Can we do a bake off? Like the more like, okay, awesome, I'm with you, but prove it. That's going to be the key differentiator. And then just real quick before we go, I think just talking about like, what do you do with this stuff, right? Like I have always hated positioning exercises because I feel like you spend 50 grand on a positioning consultant and then you just get a Google Doc and you're like, well, so what? I would just use these, like flesh these out and they're in a doc. These are then become kind of like talk tracks and swim lanes for you to think about. Each one of these is like, what can I write about and how do I roughly tie this back to what we're doing at Warmly? Like for example, one of the posts you wrote, just riffing on this right now, headline is, I think that in 2025, the ABM playbook needs to be revisited. Here's why. Boom, 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 boom. That's a perfect post that isn't promoting your product directly, but it's allowing you to stay relevant and talk about that narrative. The what's life like before and after. Isn't it crazy that today we spend all this money on marketing and we're still just handing sales a bunch of webinar leads and half the people didn't show to the webinar? I think that there's a world where basically you want to talk about all these things and it happens to be Warmly that solves this problem, but in your LinkedIn content, you're not just plugging Warmly, you're kind of raising the questions and then, oh yeah, well, this guy's not a moron. His product happens to solve these questions that we're writing about.
And I mean, I think everyone can empathize, or at least my ICP will empathize with the problems that I'm surfacing, and that will cause them to pay attention more. So I think that's a great idea.
And then you can deliver on it. I think the thing that I think is different about Founder Brand now is like just the more specific and the more examples you can get. And so it's not enough to just say, isn't this problem crazy? You're going to say, isn't this problem crazy? And check it out. Here's what people, and you don't even have to say Warmly customers. You'd be like, here are some companies that we know. Here's how they solve this. Here's how we're doing it. Boom. And getting really specific. The way to win today is by being very specific. That is how you talk to your core audience without having to like target them specifically. Dan Kennedy, who's this guy who used to study classic sales copywriter. He has this great book called The Ultimate Sales Letter. And he talks about these things as like flag planters. Basically, like if you write a headline that's like, golfers, have you ever wondered how to da-da-da? Well, the only people that are going to read that headline is golfers, right? And so in your copy, right, the way you write these posts, the more specific you can speak to the problems of your core audience, that's how you're going to target them.
I love it. Dave, thank you so much. This has been an awesome first episode. Basically, I'm going to sort of commit here to rewriting the story or my answers to the 6 questions in service of me trying to figure out my core pillars that will lead to what makes me a storyteller for my brand. So I'll come back to you next month on that. And then next time we talk, we'll go into chapter 2, which will be around finding our niche and defining our enemy at Warmly, which will be a fun one.
Perfect. And then as far as how I would want to see this play out, it's not necessarily like you're going to have this. I think some of this would be helpful in a sales deck or fundraising deck as an example. But I think basically it'd be like, if I looked at Max's LinkedIn content, do I get a sense? Because I think you have the right stuff. It's all there. Now the key is like, let's translate that to LinkedIn. If I follow you and over 3 months of following you on LinkedIn, do I kind of see you talking about these 6 things a lot? That is the measure of success. Or like, are we putting this into play? It's not going to be like you write one post that has the answers to your 6 questions.
I appreciate you giving an analytical guy a framework for success, at least something to hold myself accountable to.
Yeah, these are your guardrails. If you got rid of the rest of the book and we did no more of these things, there is enough in these 6 questions to give you 6 months of LinkedIn content.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next month.